1893. Two great voyages were taking place during this year. One was from India into the West. The other was from the West into India. Swami Vivekananda was going out to make the Western world hearken to the message of India, the message of the Spirit. And Sri Aurobindo was coming back from the West to India to surprise her from her slumber of inertia. After 14 years in England, Sri Aurobindo touched the soil of India early in 1893 at Apollo Bande, Bombay. Mother India welcomed him, embracing him with a vast peace. At the age of 5, Sri Aurobindo had been admitted into an English convent school at Darjeeling. Then, when 7, he had been taken to England. His parents, Dr. Ghosh and Swanlata Devi, child Sri Aurobindo, transplanted in the alien earth at that tender age, Sri Aurobindo was made to study at Manchester, London, and Cambridge, shining everywhere as a brilliant student. But when it came to passing the ICS, he deliberately absented himself from the writing test and got himself disqualified. But irresistible was the call of Mother India, the mother who was beautiful, who was divine. On the eve of leaving England, young Sri Aurobindo wrote, "Me from her lotus heaven, Saraswati has called to regions of eternal snow, and the Ganges, pacing to the southern sea, Ganges upon whose shores the flowers of Eden blow." After reaching India, Sri Aurobindo straightway went to Baroda and took up a job assigned to him by the Gaikwad, Maharaja Sayaji Rao. 13 years Sri Aurobindo spent at Baroda as a secretary to the Maharaja, then as a professor of French and English at the Maharaja's College. Later, its vice principal, and then as its acting principal. During this period, he married Mrinalini Devi at Calcutta. But his main activities, even during this period, could seldom be discerned from the surface. He was having a rendezvous with the soul of India, with her magnificent heritage. He knew that the supreme mysteries of the creation and of man's destiny are hidden here. And the supreme discoveries of these mysteries, too, must be possible here. To Sri Aurobindo, Mother India was not a piece of earth. She was a power, a godhead. Now her freedom became his first concern. Following his direction, some of his trusted lieutenants organized secret societies at several places in India. Members of these militant societies were prepared to make any sacrifice for the cause of independence. Preparing the ground for a nationwide political upsurge was not the only thing which preoccupied him then. He was determined to achieve unity with God. Once, here in Kashmir, on Shankaracharya Hill, there came to him spontaneously the experience of the vacant infinite. Experience after experience followed. But still his first and foremost concern was the awakening and the liberation of India. The government wanted to strike a fatal blow to the emerging spirit of nationalism in India, particularly in Bengal. Lord Curzon introduced his notorious scheme for the partition of Bengal. Immediately, there was a determined protest from the people. In a mammoth gathering, patriots and educationists of Bengal, under the leadership of Raja Subodh Malik, decided to found a national college. and they requested Sri Aurobindo to come and take charge of the institution. Giving up the prosperous Baroda service, Sri Aurobindo came down to Calcutta on a meager salary which soon dwindled down to nothing. A renowned compatriot, Betan Chandrapal, invited him to collaborate in the launching of Bande Mataram. Sri Aurobindo accepted the invitation, and under his guidance, the paper soon became the herald of revolution. Sri Aurobindo visualized that through increasing non-cooperation and passive resistance, administration of the country by a foreign government could be made impossible. This included a boycott of British trade, the substitution of national schools for the government institutions, the creation of arbitration courts, and the creation of volunteer forces. None of these programs failed. The final victory was achieved through these means. The police had let loose brutal violence against the nationalist demonstrators, and Sri Aurobindo was tried in a court of law for preaching sedition through the paper Bande Mataram. But such arrogant actions on part of the government inflamed the people's fury. Nationalist feeling became more intensified, and Bande Mataram became all the more popular. It was during this so-called sedition trial of Sri Aurobindo that Tagore wrote his famous poem, Rabindra. O Aurobindo, bows to thee. O friend, O country's friend, O voice incarnate, free India's soul. The government's move failed. Sri Aurobindo now demanded complete independence for India, Purna Swaraj, the first son of India to do so. In this he had found his greatest collaborator in that great statesman, Lokmanya Tilak. At the historic Surat session of the National Congress in December 1907, where all the top leaders of the then India were present, the nationalists, led by Tilak and Sri Aurobindo, clashed with the moderates. Nationalists held their independent convention. Sri Aurobindo and Tilak rose high in the esteem of the people. The whole of India realized their sincerity of purpose. The youth of India became greatly fascinated by Sri Aurobindo. Wherever he went, he was accorded such receptions as no Indian leader had ever known before. Sri Aurobindo's genius shot up like a meteor. The government swooped down upon the main center of the revolutionary youths at Murari Pokur Gardens of Calcutta, Sri Aurobindo's paternal property. Simultaneously, the government arrested Sri Aurobindo. For 1 year, the trial continued in the Alipur Sessions Court before the judge, Mr. Beechcroft. He had been Sri Aurobindo's classmate at Cambridge. Major newspapers were full of reports of the day-to-day proceedings. But while the outside world was full of sensation, Sri Aurobindo remained as detached as a remote star. He was having splendid spiritual experiences of realizing Vasudeva as a divine in every object, in every being. One of the budding barristers of those days, C.R. Das, later the celebrated Deshbandhu Chittaranjan, had taken it upon himself to defend Sri Aurobindo. And well known are the inspired words with which Chittaranjan concluded his speech. Long after the controversy will be hushed in silence. Long after he is dead and gone, he will be looked upon as the poet of patriotism, as the prophet of nationalism, and the lover of humanity. Long after he is dead and gone, his words will be echoed and re-echoed, not only in India, but across distant seas and lands. Therefore I say that the man in his position is not only standing before the bar of this court, but before the bar of the High Court of History. Sri Aurobindo was acquitted. Rousing receptions were given to him by the press and the people, and welcomed him as the Mahayogi and the supreme leader of India. Bande Mataram had stopped. Sri Aurobindo now edited Karma Yogi and Dharma, two weeklies, one in English and the other in Bengali. His popularity continued to cause discomfort among the rulers of India. Sister Nivedita, among many other anxious well-wishers, requested Sri Aurobindo to leave India. But Sri Aurobindo would not. But one day, all of a sudden, Sri Aurobindo heard the voice on which he had now come to depend. Go to Chandarnagar. His inner voice had assured him that India's independence was a certainty. He must go now to fresh fields and pastures new. And it was on his birthday that India achieved independence on the 15th August 1947. At Chandarnagar, Sri Aurobindo received the guidance to proceed to the French colony of Pondicherry. Now he must dedicate himself to explore the uncharted horizons of man's destiny. Providence had chosen Pondicherry for this adventure in consciousness. Sri Aurobindo was received by his admirers at Pondicherry and was taken to the house of Shankar Chetty on the 4th of April, 1910. After Sri Aurobindo left Calcutta, the government issued a warrant against him for a so-called seditious article. Mr. Ramsay MacDonald, later the Prime Minister of Britain, who had met Sri Aurobindo at Calcutta, asserted that Sri Aurobindo had made his peace with the Eternal. Mr. Keir Hardie, founder of the Labour Party, supported Mr. MacDonald and challenged the government's wisdom in issuing a warrant against Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo, whom Romain Rolland described as the last great rishi and as the completest synthesis that has been realized to this day of the genius of Asia and the genius of Europe, was now engrossed in yoga. It was in the year 1914 that the mother, coming from France, met Sri Aurobindo for the first time. Born in France, the mother was always aware of her divine mission on earth. When she saw Sri Aurobindo on the 29th of March 1914, she instantly knew that the figure that guided her in her spiritual pursuit was his. The mother wrote after seeing Sri Aurobindo, "Him whom we saw yesterday is on earth. His presence is enough to prove that a day will come when darkness will be transformed into light." In 1914, Sri Aurobindo started Arya. Most of the master's major works were first serialized in Arya. In Savitri, the longest poem ever written in English, and regarded by a Western critic as probably the greatest epic in the English language, a perfect cosmic poem, Sri Aurobindo reveals the unfolding destiny of man. According to the Mahabharata story, Satyavan's death is defeated by Savitri's intense and pure love. One day, the advent and victory of divine love in the human life will defeat all human misery epitomized in death. The mother returned to Pondicherry in 1920 on the 24th of April. As came the mother, so gathered around her the children from all parts of the world, not ascetic sannyasis, but sadhaks of a life based on spiritual realization. The ideal being, the attainment to the life divine here, on this earth and in the earthly existence. Thus grew the Sri Aurobindo ashram spontaneously in the course of the years, with Sri Aurobindo and the mother as its center. An eternal perfection is molding us into its own image of perfection. The mother and Sri Aurobindo envisage man as an evolving being, destined to evolve into a sublime being. Indeed, the crisis man experiences today in all spheres of his life is an evolutionary crisis. And with a conscious aspiration, man can transcend his present condition. Leaving his works on the physical plane to the mother, Sri Aurobindo withdrew from his body on the 5th of December, 1950. For 4 days, the body remained aglow with the light which he had brought down. Descending from the high mountain peak, the river, at its first fall on earth, may play violence with the earth. But for miles and miles thereafter, it makes the earth smile with flora and makes her children smile with life. Perhaps through a colossal strategic sacrifice, symbolized in giving up the body, Sri Aurobindo facilitated the flow of the supramental light into the earth that will usher in the dawn of man's new destiny. The body was laid in Samadhi on the 9th December. This is how the mother's inscription describes the significance of the master's body. To thee who has been the material envelope of our master, to thee our infinite gratitude. Before thee who has worked, struggled, suffered, hoped, endured so much, before thee who has willed all, attempted all, prepared, achieved all for us, before thee we bow down and implore that we may never forget, even for a moment, all we owe to thee. In Sri Aurobindo's vision, it is not through the rejection of matter, but through the conquest of matter by the Spirit, that the reign of heaven will come. Sri Aurobindo reveals, hitherto unrevealed, the splendors of truth. And in the words of the mother, what Sri Aurobindo represents in the world's history is not a teaching, not even a revelation. It is a decisive action, direct from the Supreme.